This is lesson 2-3A from the Algebra Readiness textbook. For today's lesson, you will need a sharpened pencil and your notes packet. Pause the video to gather your supplies and work the study guide questions. When you've finished, press continue. All right, so yesterday we learned about how to use the distributive property with variables. In the first example, you would distribute or multiply each number inside the parenthesis by 9. 9g plus 72. In the next example, you will take 7 and multiply each term or each number inside the parenthesis by 7. 7 times negative 1y is negative 7y. 7 times 5 is 35. In the last example from yesterday, I have a subtraction problem here in parentheses. Let's rewrite this subtraction problem as adding the opposite. I'm also going to add a 1 in front of my variable to show that a is really 1a. Then I'm going to distribute my negative 6. Negative 6 times negative 1 is a positive 6a. Negative 6 times negative 7 is a positive 42. Today's lesson target is to be able to identify parts of an expression and then use the parts of the expression to simplify those expressions. If at the end of today's lesson you are unable to do these or meet these lesson targets, please make sure to seek some additional help. Using 7a plus 4a plus 3b minus 6 as your example, let's work through the vocabulary terms. Your first vocabulary word is the word term. A term in math is a product of a number and a variable, or just a number by itself. In the example above, the terms are 7a, 4a, 3b, and negative 6. There are 4 terms in the above expression. Like terms. Like terms are terms that have identical variables raised to the same power. So they have to have the same exponent. Otherwise, they wouldn't be the same. Like in this example, 7a and 4a have the same variable, and they both have the same exponent. 3b is not the same, so that would not be a like term. Now, like terms can be added together. Make sure you make note of that. So if I wanted, I could call 7a plus 4a 11a. Coefficient. The coefficient is the number in front of the variable. In the example above, do not include the variable. So in the example above, 7 is a coefficient, 4 is a coefficient, and 3 is a coefficient. Notice I did not write the variable, and I also did not write the negative 6. The 6 does not have a variable after it, so it is not a coefficient. Constant. A constant is a term that does not have a variable. In the example above, the negative 6 is my constant. Pause the video if you need more time to write down the terms. This is another way of looking at exactly what we had just talked about and writing down those terms. This is also in your notes packet. So here is a term. A term is the 7a, the 4a, the 3b, and the minus 6. The constant is a term that has no variable. And so the constant is right here, the minus 6. The like terms have identical variables. The ones that have identical variables are 7a and 4a. And lastly, the coefficient of a number is the number, or of a term, is the number that multiplies by a variable. So it's the number in front. That would be the 7, the 4, and the 3. All right, so let's see if we can identify parts of an expression. Here is the expression 5x minus 3y plus z minus 2. Well, how many terms are there? Well, terms are separated by an addition or a subtraction sign. So I would say that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. Now, anytime that you're using an expression, let's convert all of these to subtraction to adding the opposite. So to get us started, let's rewrite this as 5x, change this to adding negative 3y plus, and then put in a coefficient if you have a variable that doesn't have a coefficient listed. And then plus negative 2. Now, what are my like terms? Well, my like terms are the ones that have the same variable. In this case, I don't have any like terms because there are no duplicate variables. Is there a constant? Well, my constant is the number without a variable. And so that would be negative 2. Lastly, what are my coefficients? My coefficients are the numbers before the variable. And so my coefficients are 5, negative 3, and 1. Don't forget the 1. Even though it's not written, you're supposed to be responsible for writing that in. It's an understood 1. Kind of like when grandma or grandpa or aunt or uncle asks you how old you are, you don't respond, I'm 1 times 12. You just say 12. But it's understood that 1 times 12 would mean the same thing. That's the identity property. In similar fashion, 1 times z is the same as z. So there isn't really a necessity to write the 1 in. But if they're asking you what that coefficient is, you need to show off that you know that really there is a 1 there. All right, pause the video and try this naming the coefficients, the like terms, and the constants in the next one. Remember to rewrite 3m minus 2n plus n minus 4 by switching all of the subtraction into adding the opposite. Okay, the like terms. When I look at this, I see that my like terms are the minus 2n and the 1n because they both have the variable n. So negative 2n and 1n. What is my constant? My constant, if I look back in my notes, is the number without a variable. That's negative 4. Lastly, my coefficients. My coefficients are the numbers in front of the variables. So the numbers in front of my variables are 3, negative 2, and 1. The most common student mistake is to write 3m, negative 2n, and 1n for coefficients. Make sure you make a note to yourself. Only write the number, not the variable. Bonus, can you add the like terms together? Can you add negative 2n plus n? Hopefully you can, and hopefully you get negative 1n. Let's try one more. Try naming the coefficients, the like terms, and the constants of these three problems. Pause the video, give it a try, and come on back. Okay, the first one, it's all addition. And so how many terms are there? It's all of the numbers between the plus signs. There are 3 of them for the first one. What are the like terms? The like terms have the same variable raised to the same power. So that's 2s and 4s. Is there a constant? Yes. In this one, it's the number without a variable. My constant is 6. What are my coefficients? The coefficients, if we look back at the definitions, are the numbers in front of the variable or being multiplied by the variable. So 2 and 4. Make sure you did not write the s. That would be wrong. And then bonus question, can you add the like terms together? What is 2s plus 4s? Well, that's 6. 6s. All right, letter B. If you need to pause the video to get that written down, go ahead and do so. Otherwise, we're going to go on to the next one. Negative 4s, or 4x, is our expression. How many terms are there? There is 1 term. Are there any like terms? Well, you can't have like terms if you only have 1, so you say no. Is there a constant? The answer is no, because there isn't a term that doesn't have a variable. What are my coefficients? My coefficient is the number being multiplied by the variable, in this case, negative 4. And then there are no like terms to add together. Okay, pause the video if you need time to get that written in. Letter C. The question says, how many terms are there? Well, before we start in with that, I see I've got this pesky minus sign. So let's rewrite this expression by changing the subtraction to adding the opposite. And then I'm squeezing the 1 as my coefficient of r in there. Now, I can see where the plus signs are, and everything in between them are my terms. I have 4 terms here. What are my like terms? My like terms have the same variable. So these 2 are like terms, but I'm not done there because I also see that I've got like terms right here. So I actually have 2 sets of like terms. So let's write both down. I've got 9m and negative 2m. Also, we have 2r and 1r. So 2 sets of like terms. Is there a constant? This time there isn't. I don't have any number that doesn't have a variable. What are the coefficients? The coefficients are the numbers being multiplied or in front of your variable. So these numbers right here are my coefficients. So I'm going to just list them. 9, 2, negative 2, and 1. And then my bonus is to add the like terms together. 9m plus negative 2m is 9 plus negative 2 is 7m. 2r and 1r is 3r. Okay, we have identified parts of our expression today, and so that's where we're going to leave it. Your homework is this worksheet, 2-3a. Make sure that the first thing you do is write your coefficients here, then write your like terms here and your constants here. If you have a subtraction problem, I would strongly suggest that you rewrite them as adding the opposite. So for number 2, I would write 2x plus negative 7. For number 1, I would rewrite that as 3x plus 5y plus negative 3, and then go ahead and fill in the 3 columns that follow.